Welcome back to Aurora Tech Channel. Today, I will review another Klipper bed slinger, the Kingroon KP3S Pro V2. Kingroon is a company that makes budget printers with linear rails. I previously reviewed the KP3S Pro, and after doing a linear rail upgrade on the Y-axis, it works pretty well. So let's see what they have to offer in their first Klipper fast printing machine. The print volume is a 200mm cube, so this machine is in line with its predecessors. While linear rails are used on all three axes, similar to other budget Klipper machines in the market, it uses an MKS Pi motherboard to run Klipper. The extruder has been upgraded from the Titan-style single-gear extruder to a 9.5 to 1 dual-gear extruder to keep up with the speed. The part cooling fan has also been upgraded to a 9,000 RPM 5015 blower. The hot end uses a ceramic heater, which should perform better than a generic heat cartridge. The machine claims to have an all-metal hot end, but the maximum nozzle temperature is just 260 degrees Celsius with the maximum bed temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. The print head has an accelerometer built in for input shaper calibration, but there is no accelerometer on the bed, so both the X and Y axis will rely on the same accelerometer in the print head. There's also an inductive sensor for auto bed leveling, and it supports Ethernet, Wi-Fi, as well as the use of a USB drive to print completely offline. The claimed maximum speed is 500 milliliters per second, which I won't take that seriously, but the recommended print speed is 350 milliliters per second with a 10K acceleration, which is still pretty good for a bed slinger. The power supply is a 300-watt one. It doesn't come with a touch screen, and instead it uses a tiny LCD screen, so you may need to use the fluid web interface to control the printer most of the time. There is no filament sensor, and it sounds a bit weird for a new machine in 2023 to lack this basic feature. For the price of $279 with Klipper firmware and linear rails, it is still pretty appealing in terms of price and hardware. I would like to thank Kingroon for sending me this machine to review, but before we get started, I would also like to thank our sponsor Sunlu. Sunlu has been involved in the 3D printing industry since 2013. So, if you've been part of the 3D printing community for a while, you might be familiar with their filament. They have their own factory and a dedicated R&D team that stays up to date with the latest market trends. Personally, I really like their recycled filament series, which are priced at an affordable price of $9.99 per roll, as I appreciate the idea of reusing plastic to help the environment. Besides that, Sunlu also offers a wide range of options, including regular PLA, strength-enhanced PLA+, carbon fiber-filled PLA, and other more unique choices like twinkling, silk, rainbow, and wood-filled PLA. They offer PETG, ABS, ASA, and flexible TPU filaments as well. They also provide accessories like filament dryers and various types of 3D printing resins. For more information, please visit sunlu.com. The packaging is in line with other 3D printers, with all parts protected by laser cut foam. The structure of this printer is really simple. We have the base, the X and Z axis, a filament holder, a LCD screen, the Z axis lead screw, the power cord, and some tools. The assembly will just take a few minutes. Put the X and Z axis on the base, install the screen, then the filament holder, and you are good to go. To set up Wi-Fi, you need to insert the USB drive that came with the machine, edit the WPA supplicant text file, and enter your SSID and password. Insert the USB drive back and turn the machine on. Every time it boots up, it takes around a minute until it shows the main screen. If you successfully connect to your Wi-Fi network, an IP address will show up here. We can use the LCD screen to select input shaper calibration, as there is an accelerometer inside the print head, so you don't need to connect another meter when calibrating input shaper. However, the print bed doesn't have an accelerometer. When I asked Kingroon about it, they told me their algorithms allow them to calibrate both the X and Y axis with a single accelerometer on the print head, so let's see how that goes. After that, set the Z offset. You can use the LCD screen or enter the IP address in the browser and use the fluid web interface to do this. Then, run auto bed leveling to create a mesh and we can start our first print. As this printer claims its top speed is 350 mm per second, I will start with the sample G-Code 3D Benchy with Sunlu regular PLA. Let's do a sound test. When it's printing at a high speed with the part cooling fan on, the sound level is around the mid-60s, which is not too loud but definitely isn't quiet. The result isn't horrible. Printing a 21-minute Benchy on this bed slinger is still pretty fast, though it's not as fast as the $600 Creality K1 or the $1,000 Qidi X Max 3 60-minute ones. It is faster than the $270 Sovol SV07 25-minute Benchy. However, the print quality is below average compared to other fast clipper machines I've tested so far. Honestly, I find it hard to believe that a new generation printer could print a Benchy of such quality, even when printing at a high speed. After doing a few more test prints, I dived into the details and worked on resolving some issues. I will discuss this more later on. However, for now, let's just continue testing this machine and see how it does right out of the box without any adjustments or modifications. Next, I will test the clearance of this machine by printing the Infinity Cube that I've printed on many other printers. The result looks alright, but the clearance failed. I couldn't make it work until I applied too much force and broke it. I will then print another number slider, which is also a good test for clearance. Similar to the cube, I can't slide them or separate the pieces until I break the whole thing. I try to print it with Sunlu Fast PLA and slowed down the print speed to 200 mm per second with a 150 mm per second wall and a 50 mm per second first layer and see if it would work better. However, the result is more or less the same as everything still stuck together. I checked the first layer height and it seems the Z offset is okay. There is a gap in the first layer, but somehow the clearance of both models didn't work as well as expected. Okay, let's print another model for a retraction test. This Voronoi cat model requires more retraction than most regular models, so let's see how this machine does. This time, the result is pretty good other than a little bit of stringing. As this machine has passed the basic retraction test, I will try a harder one, that being my own Honeycomb box, which has recently become one of my benchmark test prints. It can finish the print, but it looks much worse than the ones printed by the Qidi X Max 3 and the Creality K1, but those machines are 2 to 3 times more expensive. Now, I will try an easier model of Mount Rushmore. This kind of decorative print doesn't require an excessive amount of retraction or high accuracy, So let's see how this machine performs. It took 5 hours and 50 minutes to finish, and the result is okay. The details are clear, and even after zooming in this close, the surface is still alright. Let's try some other materials. I will use Airy 1 TPU to print a card wallet. As TPU can't be printed super quickly, I will slow it down to 60 mm per second, which is not far from a standard speed machine. It took 40 minutes to finish. It's not fast, but the extrusion is perfect, so I have no complaints about this print. Then, I will use Airy 1 PETG to print a pen holder. For PETG, I will slow the speed down to 100 mm per second. When printing PETG, the fan speed is set to 30%, but I can't see the fan spinning at all. Let's just test the sound level when the part cooling fan is off. It stays around the low 50s, which is 15 decibels quieter than when printing PLA. I'll just let the test finish, but I will talk more about the fan later in the cons section. The surface looks very nice, and I have no complaints about it. But the inside and the bottom aren't flat. It looks like we may have some over-extrusion here, and if that's the case, it explains why the clearance tests all failed. Up next, I will print an ABS filament hanger. I will use Elmer's Craft Bond extra strength glue on the bed and use the Viver 150 watt smoke purifier for ABS printing. The result is alright. The print didn't warp mainly because of the glue, and it's totally functional as a filament hanger. Since the maximum nozzle temperature of this machine is only 260 degrees Celsius, I will not try printing any engineering grade materials, but I will make a cap for the filament hanger and print it with nylon. Since I haven't used this roll of nylon for a while, I will dry it first. Sunlu recently sent me their new filament dryer, which is still a prototype. It's a 4-bay dryer that can heat up to 70 degrees Celsius. I will dry this nylon filament for 6 hours. When nylon is completely dry, it prints pretty well. The layers look really good, and it also fits perfectly with the filament hanger. As I suspect there is an over-extrusion problem in this printer, I will recalibrate the extruder, which is the same thing as recalibrating the E-steps in Marlin. I will mark a spot for 100 mm and extrude the same length of filament. I found that the printer is extruding more than 125 mm of filament, which is way over-extruded, so I will change the rotation distance in Klipper to compensate for that. When the extruder recalibrates, I will print the infinity cube one more time. This time it moved very smoothly and the clearance issue was fixed. When I put both cubes on a scale, the new one was around 28 grams, but the old one was 38 grams, which explains why it was stuck and couldn't move at all. As the printer is now well calibrated, I will also try the number slider. This time it also printed pretty well and was fully functional. Since the issue of overextrusion has been resolved, I will reprint the 21-minute benchy and see if there's any improvement compared to the first print right out of the box. I do think the difference is huge. Let's do another comparison with the other 5-speed printers I've recently tested. While this KPS Pro V2 might still not be the best, it's no longer significantly below average after the issues were addressed. Another print that showed poor quality was the Honeycomb box. I suspect the 25% overextrusion had a huge impact on the result, so I will also reprint this model. The revised print is considerably better compared to the initial one, but the retraction still falls short of the quality achieved by other machines. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this machine, starting with the pros. 1. For the price of $279, it comes with linear rails on all 3 axes. This motion system setup has an advantage over regular palm wheels for high-speed printing, and as a result, it can print a 21-minute 3D benchy, and the print quality is in line with other fast-printing machines after the extruder is recalibrated. 2. The ceramic heater heats up really fast, heating from room temperature to 220 degrees Celsius in just around 30 seconds. It also melts the filament pretty quickly and keeps up well with the high print speed. 3. The 9.5 to 1 gear ratio extruder is strong. It can push filament quickly, even with a more lightweight stepper motor on the print head. 4. The part cooling fan is a 9K RPM 5015 blower. It's much stronger than a regular 5015 blower, which only has a 45K RPM. When we want to put together a fast printing machine, the motion system, extruder, hot end, and part cooling are the 4 major components, so this machine has the full package in terms of hardware. After the extruder is recalibrated and the stock 3D printed fan duct has been replaced, I can get presentable results even when printing at 350 milliliters per second with a 10K acceleration. 5. The inductive sensor also works well. The print bed of this machine has no leveling springs underneath, so it solely relies on the bed leveling sensor. I didn't have any first layer issues during the entire test. I can print a relatively flat PLA sheet, but its success also depends on how accurately you set the Z offset. Now for the cons. 1. The biggest issue with this machine is the miscalibrated extruder, with 25% overextrusion. If a beginner bought this machine and ran the first test, the machine may be returned right away, as the benchy it prints right out of the box is not acceptable. However, after further investigation, recalibrating the extruder only takes a few minutes, and after that there is a huge improvement in print quality. But we can't really anticipate what your average customer or beginner user might do. I believe there might be variations in the extruder versions across different batches of machines, resulting in different rotation distances. As a result, the parameters within the printer.cfg file were for a different extruder version. A good version control can definitely prevent issues like this. Besides that, the firmware also has some minor issues, like how the X offset is not properly calibrated. As this machine uses TMC2209 stepper drivers for sensorless homing, the position of the limit switch may need to be set to a negative value. As this value wasn't set properly, the print starts slightly to the left instead of at the center of the bed. 2. The part cooling fan is a 9000 RPM 5015 blower, which was supposed to be a good thing, but has instead created another issue as the speed cannot be controlled. When setting the fan speed to 100%, it's on. But if you want to set it to anything lower than 100%, it's off. That may be not that big of a deal when printing PLA, as you may need to let the part cooling fan blow at 100% speed all the time, but when printing PETG or ABS, you may just want to set the cooling to 20%, 40%, or something that's just lower than 100%. In that case, the fan will be completely off. I reported this to Kingroon, and they said they realized this issue and will send a replacement to customers. So if you own one of these machines and have the same issue, you may need to contact Kingroon to see if you can get a replacement fan. 3. I noticed that the fan duct of this machine is 3D printed and a bit loose. At first, I thought that this shouldn't be that big of a deal, as I can print a replacement anytime. However, when I downloaded the STL file from their site and reprinted it, I discovered that the screw holes do not align with my fan cover and it's too long. It appears that my fan cover does not match the version of the STL file available on their download page. This is another issue caused by bad version control. I finally found a model online with the correct screw holes, but it was still too long, so I had to remix it to make it work. 4. As the OrcaSlicer is a good alternative to Cura, Kingroon also made a printer profile for it, which is good, but the profile is not well tuned. For example, right now, the part cooling fan can only be operated at either maximum speed or be completely turned off, so anything less than 100% is not going to work. However, the print profile is still trying to adjust the fan's speed, like trying to run at 80 to 90%, which means the fan is off most of the time. You can imagine what's going to happen when you print PLA at a high speed with no cooling. The thumbnail preview feature is also not working when sending print jobs directly from the OrcaSlicer, unless you add a comment line in the starting G-code to make Fluid think this is a file generated by other slicers. This was a solution I discovered in the comments section of the OrcaSlicer GitHub. I've put my modified slicer profile that fixes all these issues under the video description. 5. There are a few minor and questionable decisions that were made during the design of this printer. It's hard to believe that a new machine in 2023 does not come with a filament sensor. I know this is a budget 3D printer, but a $1 filament sensor really doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of price. Additionally, the hot end is an all-metal hot end and comes with hardened steel nozzles, but the maximum nozzle temperature is limited to 260 degrees Celsius. So I don't know what's going on, as these things honestly just don't make sense. In conclusion, this machine is equipped with a linear rail motion system, a robust extruder, a high-flow hot end, a powerful part cooling fan, and Klipper firmware, making it an ideal setup as a budget fast Klipper machine. However, the lack of well-organized hardware and firmware version control has led to issues that definitely could have been avoided. Some small details also haven't been well polished. If you have a certain level of 3D printing knowledge and can handle minor issues, it's really not that big of a deal, and buying this machine is better than building your own budget Klipper bed slinger from scratch. When you take into account the expenses involved in sourcing all the necessary hardware for a DIY setup, it may end up costing you more than just $280. Once the issues have been addressed, you might find this machine works pretty well, and it holds considerable potential. So I would say it's still a good option for experienced users, but it's not a suitable choice for beginners looking for their first 3D printer. I understand that with this being Kingroon's first Klipper machine, there might have been some rush, especially as companies are trying to keep up with BambuLab in launching fast printing machines. After recalibrating the extruder, the machine performs pretty well. But for the part cooling fan, I can't see any quick fix apart from replacing the fan, so let's see how Kingroon is going to handle that. If Kingroon has resolved the fan issue, it's best to mention it on their product page and indicate that a new part cooling fan upgrade is now included. Anyways, if you are an experienced user and are interested in learning more about this Kingroon KP3S Pro V2 printer, I've included the link in the description. That's all I wanted to share about this machine. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Today, I will review another Klipper bed slinger, the Kingroon KP3.